And welcome into Bet the Edge. It's Monday, August 22nd. Thank you everyone watching live on our NBC Sports YouTube channel. Drew is outside. It's a beautiful day. I'm inside the NBC Sports studio because it's a special day at NBC. In just 5 days, we have college football, ladies and gentlemen. We're digging into week 0 lines. Our very own Eric Froton is here. I spent the last 2 days with him. We watched film yesterday. That's how in-depth we are in week 0 already. So trust me, you want to listen to today's episode. Take our bets because we're talking season-long props, win totals in the Big Ten, and we're playing Would You Rather on a couple plays as well. As always, Drew and I, Edge of the Day is coming up, powered by PointsBet. Drew, it's looking nice where you're at, friend. What is it, like 90 degrees out there or something?
Oh, it's going to hit 100. Oh, yeah. It's going to be hot today, man. We're bringing the heat. Right now, it's nice and chill temperatures here just because it's the morning, but it's going to get up to 100 today here in California. So I'm ready for it. But beautiful day, beautiful weekend. But you know what the best part is? It's officially a football week. We have college football week 0 this weekend. So I am fired up. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, man. The Bills and the Ravens cashed for me on Friday's episode.
Yes.
Staying hot. Bills 10 straight, Ravens 22 straight in the preseason. We are pro Bills and pro Ravens here. I saw Kyler Murray call some plays, I should say, Drew. He finally got in the end zone twice. He almost led them back over the Ravens, couldn't get it done. And big news today, too. Tom Brady back in Tampa. All right. What do you think about that heading into week 1 at Dallas as a short favorite?
Yeah, he's got a lot of work to do to catch up with this unit. And, he's got a mash unit of an offensive line as they are now down Wirfs and the replacement guard. So this is all of a sudden looking like what was once one of their biggest strengths is now a huge question mark for that unit. So I think your expectations of the offense in general in Tampa have to be downgraded, at least to start the season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. I definitely think Tom Brady is second-guessing his retirement decision. Coming back to this Bucs offense, but we'll see what happens here in Dallas. He is 1-10 ATS in his last 11 primetime games, and that game will be on NBC Sports, so make sure you guys check that out. But before we switch gears here and bring on Eric Froton, today is the day. It's the debut of Matthew Berry's new show, A Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry. The legendary fantasy football analyst is back with NBC and RotoWorld, doing what he does best. He's discussing sleepers in the draft, rolling out his love and hate list, breaking down who to start, who to sit, and much more. There's plenty of actual info along with how to be a better sports bettor because a couple of us will be making appearances here and there throughout the season. So check that out weekdays and afternoons on Peacock or listen to it in podcast form wherever you listen to your podcast. Download and subscribe. Congratulations to Matthew Berry. We'll be watching the show. I'll be tuning in after this one. But now we bring in Eric Froton. Like I said, I spent the past 2 days with this guy up in New Hampshire, up in Boston. The people of both those places, man, I can't just talk about how great they are. Eric introduced me about 12 people. And then after we got all our partying out the system, Eric, what do? We watched film. We studied. We went to week 0, week 1, grinding, shining. So I already know the answer to this question, but let me ask you, early edges in week 0, how do you get involved with them? Because there's so much turnover in college football.
Well, yeah, it's going to be a game-by-game sort of a scenario, and you just try to look at all the angles. Returning production is going to be important. Obviously, coach movement as well, because every offseason, and especially last offseason, different offensive systems are changing, different offensive coordinator. For instance, we're looking at Nebraska and Northwestern here coming up, and Mark Whipple, who's the offensive coordinator for Pittsburgh last year, and frankly, is the reason why Kenny Pickett was taken in the first round. They have a new, he's in Nebraska now. They're going to be throwing more than the traditional pass-oriented Cornhuskers. So you have to look at all those sort of factors when you're going through week 0.
Certainly.
That makes total sense to me, and I think there's been a lot of buzz about Nebraska in general. They are the hot side in this game as that price is up to -13. Obviously, the early kickoff in Ireland. There's a lot of other week 0 games, though, I need to get your opinion on. Wyoming is taking on Illinois. That's Illinois -10 seems like a steep price for a team that's not very good. Anything else that especially tickles your fancy week 0?
Sure, we got UTEP and North Texas coming in there too. Let's not forget about the CUSA. I know that Vaughn rode North Texas to their 5-0 final in terms of what they ended up the season with, because they started out 1-6. They needed that 5-0 finish. And, they've got a very interesting matchup with the UTEP team for the first time in half a decade, made a bowl and had a winning record. Props to Dana Dimmel in his 4th season. So definitely that is a game we'll want to take a look at as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be all over that game. My edge of the day is actually in that game. And, I'm not going to make any surprise or talk it up. Like you said last year, I was on North Texas, but every year is a new season. We look at the turnover of a lot of these teams. And, North Texas has some turnover on the defensive side of the ball. UTEP looks very strong on the defensive side of the ball. We know the quarterback situation definitely favors UTEP. Eric, we talked about, Austin Aune being the quarterback from North Texas and how he's barely completing 50% of his passes over time. So are you going to have a side play on this game? Is there a side you like in general before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, sure. Well, you make a good point. And, I wanted to kind of go through both teams a little bit. And, when it comes to North Texas, they are very experienced on offense. They have the 8th most experienced team in the nation from a squad that averaged the 5th most rushing yards per game, 233 yards per game last year. And that's big because 4 offensive linemen are back, 106 line starts. They might have the best line in the CUSA. And that's going to be important because they do have some uncertainty at quarterback. As you mentioned, Austin Aune, who was the starter for most of last season, took over for Jace Ruder, is battling Arizona/Memphis transfer Grant Gunnell. And right now it looks like Austin Aune will be taking the reins, which, as you mentioned, 51% completion rate last year, 9-9 touchdown to interception ratio. A big factor in the lack of success for North Texas was the fact that their best receivers, Tommy Bush was out, Jair Shorter was out. They had to lean on redshirt freshman, our friend Roderick Burns. So they didn't have the kind of receivers that they're used to having the previous 5 years, because each of the past 5 seasons heading into last year, they threw for at least 280 yards per game. Last year, that plummeted to under 200 yards. So where North Texas has an experienced offense, definitely the strength of their team, they're going to be taking on a UTEP team that defensively was very, very good last year. They returned the entire defensive line. They have 2 All-CUSA defensive ends that posted an 8% havoc rate for the defensive line last year. It was 23rd best in the country, put up a 35% pressure rate. That's top 20 in the country. And their linebacker core has 2 All-CUSA performers, and they return all 3. So their front 7, I have a real hard time thinking that North Texas is going to be able to simply bowl them over, because when they played last year in the 3rd to last game of the season, North Texas won by a last-second field goal in a game where UTEP had an 85% post-game win expectancy. I think UTEP learns from what happened last year a little bit. Like I said, they're going to be ready to go defensively. I'm liking UTEP. I'm liking UTEP in it's basically a pick 'em. It's a 1-point game. And I think that their vertical passing offense that threw downfield 20% of the time was top 10 in nationally. They're going to be able to go after North Texas's defense, which is very inexperienced. It's the polar opposite of their offense. And they're going to be able to be had with, their first 6 games last year allowed 38 points per game. Last 5 games allowed 17 points per game, North Texas. They are getting better. This is going to be a close game, but I'm going UTEP.
Okay, that was pretty solid. I'm sold. And I need your help though, because for those of us who are degenerate betting college football, you care about the Power 5 schools and Hawaii. And you care about Hawaii because it's the late game. It's the get back game. And we are entering a new era as Todd Graham never really fit there. It didn't quite work. And now I see that Hawaii is hosting Vanderbilt and catching 7 points on the island. I guess, what can you help me understand about this Hawaii team for betting not just this game, but the duration of the season?
Well, for one, as you mentioned, Todd Graham, that was a spectacular failure of his regime and an ignominious end for Mr. Graham, of course. And in comes Timmy Chang, prodigal son, of Hawaii, one of the greatest college fantasy quarterbacks in history. But the thing is about Hawaii and the issue you're going to have is they didn't just lose a lot of players to graduation. They lost a lot of players to transfer because of the Graham exodus. Yeah. You only have 6 returning starters in the entire team, 2 of them on defense, and then on offense, 4 returning starters from an offense that allowed 28 sacks last year, 8.2% sack rate, which was on the very bottom, and is 130th in returning experience, the entire Hawaii team, because of this max exodus, and the transfer portal did not do them any favors. That's a real problem. Obviously they lost 10 of their top 12 tacklers on defense as well. So when you're talking about a team that is 117th in 247 Sports' average player rating in terms of the talent pool they're playing from, it's a problem because they're playing a Vanderbilt team who, while they are the doormats of the SEC, this is a team that has 7 returning starters on offense, 7 returning starters on defense. Mm-hmm. They are 51st in terms of overall 247 talent rating, average talent rating. When you're talking about the difference in 117th to 51st, that is a chasm, and you have a whole new coaching staff coming in for Hawaii, while Clark Lee has it's year 2. So he's already had his year 0. He's had the opportunity to change over the roster, figure out what he has, starting a new quarterback in Mike Wright, who's a lot more mobile than Ken Seals was last year. And their offense needed it because they were terrible. They were in the very bottom 20 of just about every metric you can have, with the exception of they did a good job in pass protection. But their best offensive lineman, Tyler Steen, who's their all conference left tackle, transferred to Alabama. He's now the left tackle there. So both of these teams have dealt with attrition, but with the overall talent level being so superior for Vanderbilt. Year 2, where you already have 7 on each side in terms of returning starters, they do a good job in terms of power situations. That's where they actually had some success. Vanderbilt, I think they're going to be able to win the line of scrimmage, and they're going to be able to win by more than the 6.5, 7 points that they're currently favored by.
Yeah, and this is interesting too because we've seen 7s all across the board now. Like this was 6.5 at a lot of shops yesterday. Now it's up to 7. I did grab the 6.5 yesterday, Eric. This is one we both felt pretty strongly about after we watched Mike Wright practice in the spring game, his scrimmages for the Vanderbilt. He's gonna open up the playbook for this team, and it's gonna be able to give them a lot of different options. A team that can run the ball very well. And Vanderbilt flew out yesterday to Hawaii, so they're getting that extra days of rest to try and prepare themselves ahead of that late night matchup, because we know playing at 10:30 Eastern is not easy for anybody, let alone an Eastern time zone team. But Vandy has won 5 straight on the road as a road favorite, 4-1 ATS in that stretch, while Hawaii only 2-8 on the money line, 3-7 ATS as a home dog versus Power 5 schools. So I think we're on the same page, my man. It's not surprising spending all the time together. So let me ask you this one. Nebraska opened up at -10.5 at most shops. They're out to -13. The game is in Ireland. Both of these teams flew out early so they can get an advantage here and get used to this time zone. Do you have a side you like in this one? Because last year, Nebraska beat the brakes off of Northwestern 56-7.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point, and something that, obviously we talked about a little bit with Drew, is Nebraska is a very trendy team in this offseason. They only went 3-9 last year. But as discussed, the games, all 9 of their losses were within single digits, and all 3 of their wins were absolute bashings where they blew the opposing team out. They actually outgained their opponents by 82 yards per game last year, despite a 3-9 record. That points to obviously a turnaround. All 9 of their losses, again, single digits. And their offense, I think that with Mark Whipple coming in as the new offensive coordinator and a new quarterback, where the Adrian Martinez era is mercifully been ended, he's at Kansas State now. You're going to have Casey Thompson come in, who was pretty good throwing the ball for Texas last year. And I think he'll take pretty well to Mark Whipple's offense, where 19% of their passes last year were 20 yards downfield. That was 14th most in the country. This is a team that wants to stretch the field, is not afraid to throw the ball, but they were too reliant on the big play to score because their efficiency metrics were not very good. Like, they were explosive, not very efficient. In terms of their offensive line, they will need to get a little better. 8.1% sack rate, 104th in the nation. You're going to have to be able to keep Casey Thompson upright if you're going to be able to throw all these passes. It's Trey Palmer. Their defense is really good, suppressing explosiveness, 24th in terms of big play rate allowed, allowed 3.1 points per scoring opportunity. That was 9th best in the country. A lot of things are pointing up for Nebraska. Now, on the other side, you have Northwestern, all right? 9 returning starters on offense, but they only scored 17 points a game last year. It was one of the worst offenses in the country. You have a very unsettled quarterback with Ryan Helinski, as we know, transfer from South Carolina. He is probably on the short side right now of winning that job. The good news is they returned 4 starters on the offensive line, including Peter Skoronski, who is one of the top 3 offensive linemen in the country in terms of the 23 NFL draft, in terms of the prognostications. So in terms of, what they have to get better at, they need to be able to throw the ball better. 38% success rate, 114th in the country, one of the worst passing teams in the nation. Defensively, they allowed 29 points per game. That was almost 10 points more than the previous season. Only 19 sacks. Need to get more pressure on the opposing quarterback if they're going to be able to stop him in any way, shape, or form. Allowed a 67% completion rate. And again, if you can't get pressure and you just allow those quarterbacks to sit back there and take you apart, it's going to be a very long season. So I do feel like Pat Fitzgerald, who has been around for 17 years, is a battle-tested coach, will have a better defense this year, but they got destroyed on the ground on every metric, and sincerely need to get better on that front. The 10.5 points sounded really good. We're up to 13, and the reason why, Vaughn, as we talked about, the reason why, everything's pointing up for Nebraska. Everything's pointing up. All their advanced stuff. And when you're looking at Northwestern, I don't know that they're any better on offense. I just don't know that they're going to be able to throw the ball at all behind that. And if they're going to go against a Nebraska team, that has shown that they have a good defense, they have a good front seven, I think that they're going to have a hard time. And again, I'm going to go with Nebraska laying the 13. They better win by 14. The 56-7 win last year was really what tipped the scales for me. When you're beating a team beating the Brits that badly, I don't know if they can do it again.
Yeah, and we talked about them being 12.5-point favorites in that game against Northwestern last year, and we saw what happened. And now they're on a neutral field site, and we see the spread around the same exact thing at closing value. So certainly they think Nebraska is going to be a much better team. Northwestern will not be. And I have to agree. I don't know if I'm going to bet the first game of the day, because that's the game that could catch people and, throw off your entire day betting. But I like the rest of the slate a lot better than Nebraska versus Northwestern. But if I'm betting, I'm with you on that one. I am taking Nebraska minus the 13. The last game to cover before we move on to a couple more topics in the college football slate: Wyoming at Illinois. We talked about Hawaii resetting everything. Wyoming's the same way. 34% of their production is the third fewest in the entire country. They're a 10-point dog going to Illinois, a team that I'm on the over 4.5 win total, and I'm in love with the defense and what they're going to be able to do this year offensively. So tell me, are you riding minus 10 Illinois like I am?
You're right in the limit. Well, Illinois, like you said, is minus 10, and it's year 2 of Bielema. But the real issue is, I want to look at Wyoming because they have 4 starters returning on each side of the ball. They're 129th in returning experience. Offensively, they have just 5 returning snaps total of experience for their 3 new interior offensive linemen. And with Wyoming, they're a run-based team. So you're going to have the big uglies ready to go. And that certainly concerns me that they are so inexperienced. Now, they have a new quarterback. They have 2 new starting wide receivers. Isaiah Nayor, who went to Texas, just was injured. He took the top off of defense. He was an absolute weapon for them. Xavier Valladay is now at Arizona State. And this is an offense that scored 25 points per game last year and is pretty much starting over almost completely. Now, with Illinois, that's a problem because they're going to have to try to run the ball against, the Illini. And this is a team that, was pretty good at suppressing explosiveness and stopping teams on passing, bringing pressure, right? 4 of their top 6 defensive linemen are back from a good, solid unit. I think Wyoming is going to have a very hard time running the ball against this front. And then on the other side of the ledger, you got to remember, Wyoming is a small defensive line. Okay.
Yeah.
They're 2 starters, 292, Godbout, 6'4", 292, Burton-Nuggle, 275. Like, they are basically three techs that are being put in the middle of the line that are playing, nose tackle, D tackle. And they lose Chad Muma, who was the heart and soul of their defense, their middle linebacker, who was a number 3 draft choice. So where you're dealing with a team in Illinois that's very good in power situations, 76% success rate in power situations. In terms of first and goal success rate, 70% first and goal success rate. That's 10th in the country. They're very good when they have to put their big, powerful offensive lineman that Brett Bielema likes, and they lean on you. That's bad news for Wyoming. They don't have the beef on that line to be able to handle it. They're very inexperienced. Illinois was a team that looked good, better in the second half of the year, which is to be expected for a first-year coach. Again, second-year coach factor. I like Illinois. It looks like I like the favorites.
You kind of talked me into like a team total under on Wyoming. Like, I feel like Wyoming is going to score like 3 points now. So I think maybe that's the right angle of attack here. Let's it would be fun to pick your guys' brains, because I know you guys spend so much time and have done so much college football. So a lot more to ask questions wise here. But that was a fantastic breakdown. So appreciate all that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on that side too. I think we have a lot of good looks, and Drew, I hope you definitely tell some of these bets too, like we've been telling the tennis ones. But I feel pretty confident, especially Illinois. They haven't released all the team totals, but I think that Wyoming team total under is definitely one of the best looks of the weekend. I think the first game is the biggest trap game, and everybody is going to bet Hawaii +7 and then over 55 to try and get their money back. So good luck if you take that side. We're on Vandy. But just as a reminder, if you guys want the NBC Sports Digital app powered by PointsBet, go download it now. The contests are free. They're easy to play, and you guys have a shot to win thousands by predicting what's going to happen in MLB, the PGA Tour, NASCAR circuit, Premier League, and more. Tuesdays, Thursdays are called Battle of the Bets. Agree or disagree with us. Experts collect cash, all that stuff. So make sure you guys get that app. Let's bring Eric back in now. Let's talk the Big Ten, because if you live under a rock and you haven't heard, NBC will be on the Big Ten next year. It's going to be an exciting time as we get to see all these matchups. But this year, we got a couple ones. But I want to hand off to Drew, because we're going to play Would You Rather and do some Big Ten totals, and me and Eric are going to take a swing at some of these.
Yeah, perfect, because I don't have a college football handicap. I need this insight. We've already talked a little bit of Big Ten already today, but I want to get some feels for these win totals, because one of my sharper friends says Michigan is being underrated. The market is too cold on this team. Just everybody's got eyes for Penn State and Ohio State, obviously. But the Michigan total is sitting at 9.5 wins, -125 to the over. Eric, is that a play or pass?
I like Michigan. Over this year. I mean, they're at 9.5 as discussed. And when you're looking at the Wolverines schedule, they play the 50th ranked schedule in the country for a team that, is talent-wise is a top 10 program. Their non-conference slate is a dream. You got Colorado State, Hawaii, and Connecticut. Jackpot. That's an easy 3-0, so you feel great about that. And you get into potential games they could lose. I mean, they're lucky in that they get Penn State at home, they get Michigan State at home, they get Nebraska at home. All important games. They do have to go and face Iowa on the road, but that offense is so bad. They're losing their best offensive lineman too in Linderbaum. They're losing Tyler Goodson. You have to figure out, do you start Alex Padilla or Spencer Petras on that offense? It's just, I can't believe how good they were last year. Their defense overcame just such a terrible offense. So I think it's going to be they're going to have a hard time, Iowa, even though they have a really good D. They have 8 starters back. I think they have a hard time stopping this Michigan Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. You got Corum back. You got Donovan Edwards, the 5-star running back who looked incredible against Maryland, catching 10 passes. I like what they're doing. I think you get at Ohio State at the end of the year. Besides that, they can dump another one. Maybe they lose to at Iowa. Maybe they lose to Penn State at home, even though I don't think they will. But there just isn't I can't see 3 losses from this schedule. And
okay. One,
you have to go with it.
Vaughn, would you take
Yeah.
over Michigan or over Michigan State if 8.5 minus 130? Which is a better look for you?
Oh, I like Michigan. I like the Wolverines, man. Like
Okay.
a lot of what he said, but you look at the schedule. I like Michigan to get 10, maybe 10, 11 wins. I mean, that Ohio State game, the last game of the season, yeah, they're going to lose, but break it down Michigan State. I mean, we saw that secondary last year. It was terrible. And they're losing their running back in Kenneth Walker now, who's probably going to potentially start for the Seahawks at some point. So, yeah, I mean, Michigan State, looking at their schedule, you know, they got Ohio State, Wisconsin at home, but go to Michigan on the road. That's a 3-game slate. Those are probably 3 losses right there. So, yeah, give me the under on Michigan State, the over on Michigan.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so how about Penn State versus Nebraska here? These are both kind of lined in that 7-8 range. Penn State under 8.5, Vaughn, is that a better bet, or Nebraska under 7.5? Both about even juice.
Yeah, this one's tough because Nebraska is, like we said, the hyped-up team. They are the best 3-9 team ever last season. Penn State, you know, they're getting their quarterback back. Again, Uncle Sean Clifford, I like to call him, year 6. You know, I would probably take Penn State under. We were looking at this, and, you know, Michigan on the road, Minnesota at home, then Ohio State at home. Those are 3 games where I think Penn State could lose all 3 of those games. They still have to go to Auburn. They still have to host Michigan State. They still host Maryland, who's not a walk in the park. And they opened the season at Purdue. So I feel more comfortable taking Penn State under 8.5 than Nebraska under 7.5.
I feel the same way. Penn State, like you're saying, open up at Purdue on Thursday night. You know, first game of the season. That's not really
Not
where you
easy.
want to be. Then again, week 3, you know, you get Ohio. Then week 3, you're at Auburn. You know, year 2 of Brian Harsin. You know, you get in that. You have to go to Michigan. You play Ohio State at home. All the reasons that he got into, and I think Maryland's better. You know, than
Maryland's a lot better.
He's a lot better. They have a battle-tested quarterback in Taulia Tagovailoa, who I like a lot more than Sean Clifford. And you just saw Penn State's inability to win close games last year really come back to them. 4 returning starters on defense. They're going to have to be rebuilding on that side of the line as well. I just think with all these factors, a mediocre quarterback in Sean Clifford, rebuilding a defense, losing Jaquan Brisker, who's an incredible safety, losing Tariq Castro-Fields. I just feel like they're going to have to 8 wins. Fine. I think that's reasonable, but they won 7 games last year. They won 4 the year before. Franklin, if he doesn't have a good season, could be out. These are all factors that go under.
Okay. How about the last one here, Eric? I'll give you first crack. Hot side, Purdue under 7.5 or Maryland over 5.5?
I'm going Maryland over 5.5. I really like that, in fact. All they have to do is achieve bowl eligibility. Okay. Buffalo week 1, Charlotte week 2, SMU week 3 in their non-conference slate. I feel great about that slate. They can at least take 2 games, possibly 3. You know, SMU is good, but they could possibly take 3. They got at Michigan, which, okay, that's an L. But then Michigan State, very much in play at home. I actually like Maryland to be slightly favored there. Purdue at home, great. Another game, we like it. At Indiana, who's probably might be the worst team in the Big Ten for my money as well. If you're going to get them, you want them on the road. And then you get Northwestern at home. They have a real tough stretch run at Wisconsin, at Penn State, Ohio State. You know, that's their tough stretch towards the end. But then they finish up with Rutgers. I think Buffalo, Charlotte, Michigan State, at Indiana, Northwestern, that's 5 right there. We're not even giving them – so they got to take one of SMU, Purdue, Rutgers. Done. Give me Maryland all day.
I like that. I definitely like the over 5.5 too, but I think I'm more into Purdue under 7.5 in this spot. Like Purdue, Drew, we know they're the giant killers. They're the giant killers. How many Giants do they play this year? They play one ranked team. No, they play one ranked team at Wisconsin. They don't win the games normally like they do against these lower level squads. But I want to talk about a 6-game slate for Purdue that's really going to wreck their season. They're going at Minnesota, then at Maryland, at home versus Nebraska, then going to Wisconsin, at home versus Iowa, then at Illinois. That stretch right there is going to be very hard for Purdue midseason. They got their quarterback back, but they lost top 3 receivers. And in spring ball and their scrimmages of late, they did not look good offensively. So I'll take Purdue under 7.5 wins.
All right, fantastic. Well, I feel totally caught up now on Big Ten especially, which is, of course, taking over as the most important college football to watch beyond the SEC, if not even more important as we kind of broaden the conference here. Eric, one of the things that I especially like that you bring to the table when it comes to college football handicapping is your knowledge of player performance at the college level, which is something, niche markets you can absolutely destroy if you have the ability to. And are there any kind of season-long college football player props that we should be targeting as we get ready for kickoff?
Sure. We just had our DraftKings release on Friday. They just released their seasonal player props, and there weren't, a ton of them, but they put them out there in order to wet the whistle. And what you saw from DraftKings is much different than the initial drop we got from Prize Picks, which, about 3 weeks ago put out their initial lines. And what I wanted to highlight in that is the discrepancies and the importance of shopping your lines when it comes to these college football player props, because you're going to see DraftKings have a much different line than FanDuel, who will have a different line than Prize Picks. So what I want to do is, kind of go through this. So Prize Picks opened for Caleb Williams' over-under on passing yardage at 3,010.5 yards on the 22nd of July when it opened. Currently, what DraftKings opened at was 3,699 passing yards. And this is both the same. This is 12 games of play. It's the regular season. It's not any more, not any less. And that's a 689-yard difference when it comes to the over and the under, presenting a pretty good middle opportunity if you do want to go that direction. But keep in mind, Prize Picks, you have to parlay them. Now, if I had to pick between one of the two lines, I love the middle there, obviously 689 yards, but DraftKings, I think, is a little high here at 36.99. And, a lot of reasoning behind that goes to last year, Caleb Williams split time with Spencer Rattler. Even when they did, you went through it, that had 3,200 yards roughly in terms of those two combined, because Caleb Williams is a running quarterback. Spencer Rattler is not. He is a straight pocket passer. When you have a running quarterback, the most recent comp we have for a Lincoln Riley offense would be Jalen Hurts in 2019, who he ran for over 1,000 yards. Per game, they threw for 297 passing yards per game, which that would put the offense at 3,564 yards, all right, amortized over 12 games for this particular thing. So that's going to put you about 150, 140 yards below what we're talking about for this number for Caleb, 36.99. Keep in mind, that's the entire team output, okay? Caleb Williams is more mobile. He's going to be running. That is going to take some of the explosive plays away from the passing game. Additionally, you're talking about a completely different. I mean, we're going to the Pac-12 as opposed to the Big 12. It's a completely different ball game. I think what we're going to be able to see with USC this year is Caleb Williams is a good passer, but he's not a great passer. He can do other things. I think you see him go clearly under that 36.99. I think that's a very bullish take. If you put it, he's going to have to throw for 309 yards per game in order to clear that. That is a very, very bullish sort of a belief when you're talking about they're going to be blowing some teams out. They're not going to be able to take in those, the end of the game snaps. That's a factor. I just don't think it's going to work out. And to the second player that I'd like to kind of go into is CJ Stroud, and for the very same reasons. Opened up at 33,632 passing yards. Currently at 4,450 is where they put him at DraftKings. That is an astronomical line.
Yeah.
He did for the entire season. However, he missed a game against Akron. He didn't have to play that game. If he misses any snaps, he's got Devin Brown behind him, who's a 5-star. He's got Kyle McCord as a quarterback, who's a 5-star. They're going to want to get these guys reps because CJ Stroud is gone next year. We know this. So he's going to be seeding work during the later, portions of the game. And I mean, he has to throw for 371 yards per game every single game and not miss any snaps in order to be able to hit that 4,450. I just think you're asking for a lot here because you're not factoring in injuries. You're not factoring in the garbage time. So when you're looking at that sort of a spread, currently Prize Picks is 38.32, DraftKings 44.50. 618 yards of line difference. From the opening, it was 818 yards of line difference. This is what you can do and where you can really profit from the college football point of view. If you're out there and you're getting these player prop lines early, you can really make sure that you can win on both sides with those middles. That's an 818-yard middle. I'm almost positive that's where it's going to end up in terms of Stroud's final. So these are just a couple of things for the season-long props that are certainly you want to be aware of. And when the weekly props come in again, shop your lines because they're going to be different. And that's really the motive, the moral that I want to try to impair on everybody. Shop your lines and be ready. As soon as those lines come out in college, they're Wild West. They will be changing rapidly and be on it as soon as you can on those Friday afternoons, checking out me and Vaughn's show that will be going on NBC Sports to handle all of these sort of lines.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to have some great content all season long, man. I love those looks on those two quarterbacks. I mean, Drew and I have heard it plenty on the show. Fade USC, fade USC. Anyway, you're giving us the Caleb Williams. And, of course, everybody wants to bet the overs on C.J. Stroud being the Heisman favorite. But we saw that worked out last year with Spencer Rattler. So you will not get me on that one once again. Well, you said, Eric, you got a content coming. Let us know what days those are and where they can find you on Twitter, my man.
Sure. My Big Ten preview, it'll be at least 10,000 words. Yeah, it'll be from the full betting perspective, and I'll have my full thoughts on the stuff that we talked about here earlier in terms of Purdue, Maryland, Penn State, Michigan. I'll go soup to nuts through each one of those teams and make sure that we have a complete top to bottom analysis of the over-unders for those teams and their chances to win the Big Ten. So that'll be out sometime this week, probably Wednesday or Thursday. And very excited. Hey, we got Big Ten After Dark coming in 2023 to NBC. I'm very excited about the great Big Ten conference and the additions of USC and UCLA.
Yeah, we'll have to stop all the USC hate by the time the Big Ten conference is on NBC. But for now, we'll see what happens. But Eric, appreciate you. I'll see you shortly. Make sure everyone goes and follows Eric on Twitter at CF Froton. Read more of his handicap on NBC Sports Edge and get you some winning player prop bets in your pocket as well. Eric, thank you, my man.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, everyone. As you guys know, weekends are better with MLB Sunday leadoff coverage presented by Uber Eats. Catch the Dodgers going across the country to play the Marlins in Miami this Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, live on NBC and Peacock. To learn more, go to peacocktv.com/MLB. And if you guys want a chance to win $25K, download that NBC Sports Printer app powered by PointsBet. Take your phones if you're watching live. Put up to the screen now. You can scan that QR code and enter in the Sunday's free Grand Slam Pick'em contest. And that's a free contest to win $25K. Again, Marlins, Dodgers, Peacock TV, Sunday, 11:30 Eastern. I got the Dodgers, but so will everybody else in the world. Drew, edge of the day, where are we going with the tennis slate, man? You got a bounce back pick for us, my friend.
Oh yeah, for sure. So it's a weird week. We have kind of a slow week as we wait for the U.S. Open to get started next week. But that does not mean there is not value on the board. I'm going to go to WTA Cleveland, where there is the hottest women's tennis player that has not really gotten the attention she deserves this summer for how well she's playing. Her name is Bernie Pera, Pera. And she has been absolutely lights out electric. Only one loss in her last 2 months of play. You have to go back to basically grass season to find any kind of lackluster performances from her. She has just been absolutely dominant. She should be the favorite for this outright. She should not be kind of halfway down the list of potential winners here. She is the best player in this field. Right now, there is just a who's who of out-of-form players who have weaknesses that have been exposed. Bernarda Pera ought to be the favorite here. My fair price for her is just short of 8-1. You can get her for 16-1 to win this title. Absolutely love this. The way that they structure this, there's no advantage to being seeded, really. In fact, the number one seed in this tournament is a dog today. And she is at the top of this board among the outrights. It's Barbara Krejcikova. So Bernie Pera, she's the class of this field. She's an up-and-coming U.S. player that has done nothing but win titles for the last 2 months. So another one to more hardware to put on her mantle this week as she wins WTA. Cleveland 16-1, edge of the day for me.
I love that. That's a great breakdown. Crazy to see the favorite as an underdog first one of the day. So when does the WTA end? What day would you be winning this bet?
Sunday. We'll cash this one on Sunday. Actually,
Cash
maybe
this one on
Saturday.
Sunday.
You know what? I think they compress it because the slam starts the following week. They're probably going to wrap this one up on Saturday. So this one, we cash this one on Saturday.
So we win the $1,600 bet, and then we sprinkle some Vandy minus 6.5 for the night slate. I like it, Drew. Sounds great, my friend. I'll be telling that. $10 wins 160. So why would you not at least sprinkle something on that bet? I love that one. But mine, we're gonna go to the college football week 0 slate. Drew, we talked about it earlier. I said it'd be my edge of the day. I have this shirt here. I wore this shirt so much last year. This is my favorite shirt in college football, but that was last year. It doesn't matter. We don't keep our feelings the same when it comes to betting because there is new trends, there is new teams, there are new players, and this system that's going on right now. Eric did a phenomenal job breaking down UTEP and North Texas earlier, but everybody is going to be betting North Texas for 2 reasons. Those 2 reasons: one, North Texas has now won 5 straight against UTEP overall. Now, if you look at some of those scores and you watch back in those games, North Texas shouldn't have won some of those games, including the meeting last season when they got a Hail Mary 50-yard pass, set them up for a 10-second field goal remaining to win the game. So mind that. And then you look at North Texas overall. I mean, they finished hot last year. Yeah, UTEP finished cold. Yeah, they might have they just played well too early. But you look at what they did overall entering this season. The Miners return a 1-2 punch in the backfield, both up for the Doak Walker Award. They have the better quarterback in Gavin Harrison. They have the better front seven guaranteed because North Texas does not return a start on their defensive line. All right, you're talking about one of the best rushing attacks in the CUSA for UTEP going against them. I'm really worried about North Texas in this spot. And their quarterback, Osanani, they thought he would get beat out, and he didn't get beat out in the scrimmages. So him being the quarterback is really a negative for them. They lost all their receivers. They have a couple running backs, but it's not going to be enough for a quarterback 6-10 on the money line when he throws at least 17 passes. We've seen North Texas from 1.5 come down to 1. I think we're going to see a pick 'em to come because that's what PointsBet was moving towards. And to be honest with you, I'm okay with 72% of the handle being on North Texas. Everybody's going to take them because they've won 5 straight against UTEP. This is the best UTEP team we may ever see, Drew, and that's serious. Go look at what they've done the past couple of seasons.
I love it, man. Game in the Sun Bowl. El Paso is going to be popping. Great look, and between you and Eric, you've got me sold on the UTEP Miners.
Yeah, they're going to be a good team this year, man. Definitely worth backing. So we got you guys covered. Hopefully you're riding. We got Illinois. We got a little lean on Nebraska. We got a great tennis bet and Para to win the WTA Cleveland at plus 1,600, and we're rocking with the UTEP Miners +1 at home against North Texas, where they're 4-0 ATS all time as the home team. Yeah, I said that. So don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com. All the information you guys need when you're done listening to us. Help you out with your wagers. Thanks for you guys watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. Thanks for listening on the podcast. Subscribe, rate, like, and don't forget, right after this, in about 10 minutes, Matthew Berry's show starts. So make you guys tune into the Fantasy Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, and we'll see you there.